name is Nick Dunlap, and I'm running for Fullerton City Council District 2. Well, we've done a lot to benefit not just District 2, but the city of Fullerton. And I think some of the things I'm most proud of, we've worked together to restore the city's credit rating by increasing our financial reserves. We've been able to make, and work through really some difficult cuts to the budget to get our city back on track. And ultimately, I think some of the things that I'm most proud of are the accomplishments that we've made on our roads and streets. Together as a council, we've worked to invest over $50 million into our roads and streets, and that's more than any other council over the last 2 decades. And so hopefully, if reelected, we'll be able to continue the work there to improve that, because we've got a lot of work to do. Well, I think it's important not just to look at cuts, but it's also to look at growing revenue. And I think one of the things that was really overlooked in the city of Fullerton for a long time was growing revenue by actually attracting new businesses and new development uses. And so right now there's about $1.5 billion in investment activity taking place in our city. And so these are residential, commercial, and industrial developments across our city that are not just going to bring new businesses to our city, but new residents to our city. And as these projects come online and they start to pay property taxes, we're going to see a boon to the sales tax revenue and also the property tax revenue here in our city. Sure. So, and this is all privately. I should indicate this is this is kind of the free market, and these are private developments taking place. So it's not the city pushing these things, right? These are private developers, which to me is actually more exciting because for a while, Fullerton was overlooked by I think the business and development community across in North Orange County. People would look, and Fullerton had established this kind of image of being anti-business and difficult to work with, but we've sort of worked to reverse that. But this would include projects like the shop-off project up at Rosecrans and Euclid, which is for sale residential project, and it's also got a retail component as well. This would be sort of the student housing retail complex that is, I think it's called the Hub, on Chapman close to the 57 freeway. But it also includes industrial projects like I think it's the Goodman Logistics Center, and then also there's Rexford and Aries also have 2 large industrial projects and logistics centers underway in the city as well. So those are a few, and then of course I think the most exciting is probably the commercial retail project, which is the Fox Block on North Harbor Boulevard. That one's very exciting as well. Well, I think it's for me, and look, as somebody who grew up here and has lived in different parts of the city, I don't look at it as a district, as a city by districts. I look at us as one city and one Fullerton. And I think kind of the great uniter, if you will, in that is that our roads and streets are, in suboptimal conditions, whether you live in north, south, east, or west Fullerton, and we need to work on, continuing to improve those things. And so, like I had mentioned, a little earlier, the kind of our $50 million investment into the roads and streets, and that's something that we'll need to continue in the years to come. But I think by and large, any survey that gets put out, it's routinely roads and streets, and then public safety, and then homelessness, either as a third or as some subset of the public safety aspect of things. Well, that's a great question. So I would say I've had a lot of support from friends and family. I think my biggest contributors, I've had a few people max out to me. One would be David Jerome, who was a good friend and a local, somebody I grew up with. I've had other business groups. Obviously, I work in the real estate investment business, so I have an extensive network there. And so I think, like anybody, it's kind of like you call your wedding list and your friends and family when you decide to run for office. And so it's kind of what I did to an extent. With respect to endorsements, I've got a few that I'm proud of. I would say that the first would probably be the Crime Survivors PAC, which is one, and basically they advocate for victims' rights. And I think that as somebody who has basically stood with and stood for the police and trying to help them do their job, they've got a very tough job nowadays. And really, we as the council act as sort of the oversight body of the police department, the way the department is structured. And so I think it's important to note that we've turned a corner from I think the dark days of Kelly Thomas, and we're not that department anymore. I'm happy with the leadership that we have in place right now with Chief Radis, but I think sort of so that getting back on track, the Crime Survivors PAC is definitely one that I'm proud of. Obviously, the Orange County Taxpayers Association is another one. Fullerton Association of Concerned Taxpayers is another. Because I think as you look around today, unfortunately, taxes only go up. They never seem to go down. And so I think it's important to have principled people in place who can kind of toe the line and stand up for what's right and try to protect, people and businesses in this age of inflation and higher costs, right? We need people to stand up for those interests. So I'm a big believer in the free market, and I think this is if you study economics and you realize this is a really simple economic issue at the end of the day, and it's all based on supply and demand. And the reality is there's too many people competing for too little housing, right? And I know that's tough to say because I also get the calls where people say, oh, there's too many people, don't allow that project to be built, and I think to an extent the state has actually stepped in and prevented and taken away some of those local controls. But the reality is this is a kind of a market issue, and I think it's one that our council actually takes seriously. I mean, in the 4 years that I've been on council, we've approved every residential project that's come forward. Now there have been, and I think it's important to note that we've worked with the community groups that have come forward as well to express their concerns, and we've tried to get those concerns addressed by the developer, and I think that always helps. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's all about supply and demand, and it's increasing housing supply. Well, that's a great question. So Fullerton is a tree city, USA, and I think that's something we celebrate not just on Arbor Day, but kind of throughout the year as we go out and we do those plans. And so what I understand is that we've continued to invest in those areas, and that the city is actively planting trees in those underserved areas.